junior assistant. I'll be your reader for today. The theme for 2025 is rising higher and growing deeper. Rising higher, growing deeper. The theme for March is the flow of coming and going. Our topic for today is blossoming in the swaying. Ernest Holmes wrote, "You need not ask what others have done. Be yourself. Find the self in God and God in the self." Now let us affirm together. Today I surrender to the presence of God within me as me. Now let me please welcome Reverend Dr. Kathleen Johnson.
Yay, Lawson. A guy comes to his psychotherapist and he says, "I'm a teepee, I'm a wigwam. I'm a teepee, I'm a wigwam. I'm a teepee, I'm a wigwam." The psychotherapist looks at him and says, "Relax, you're too tense." So this is a call to relax, a call to find that center of peace in the midst of the swaying winds of change that are sometimes calm and sometimes violent. And yet I know in my heart of hearts that this beautiful spiritual teaching that we offer gives us that place of inner respite, inner peace, in which we can blossom in whatever the swaying is doing in our world, those winds of change. And we can even participate in that change. I'd like to start again with and review the Science of Mind symbol. It's good for me, and I think for all of us to revisit it from time to time. And we did last week, and we're going to do again this week. And remember, let's see, Dan has it up there. Good, seed, soil, plant. This is the way that we generally teach people who have never been introduced to the Science of Mind symbol before, is to use the metaphor of seed, soil, plant. The way we teach it is spirit, soul, and body, or thought, subconscious mind, and result or effect. But seed, soil, plant is a great way to remember it. The seed being the seed thought. The thought is like a seed. So when we have a new idea, a new thought, it gets planted in universal law automatically. We don't have to do that. It just happens because of the way the universe is designed. We are microcosms of the macrocosm, so just like the Creator creates, we are designed to create as well as individualizations of God or children of the Most High. So our ideas then reap accordingly in perfect correspondence to what we are focused on, so whatever that idea is. We also need to remember that in the already planted in the soil are the beliefs that we have gathered throughout all of the times that we have been here, and some think even before we came here. So our culture, the way that we're socialized, we develop certain beliefs about what life is all about. So seed thought, we can plant new seeds to neutralize beliefs that don't serve us, that are already in the law, and then create a new result. This is so empowering. This teaching is so empowering because it helps us realize what Jesus taught when he taught, "It's done to you as you believe." And he very clearly was teaching these beautiful principles. And so as we continue to embody this creative process, this Science of Mind symbol, it helps us to to understand this, how it works in the best way, so we can really consciously use it. And Ernest Holmes reminds us, he says, you simply have to let the law act and respond to your vibration. Respond to your vibration. That's a very powerful thing to remember. The law does what it does. Our part is not only to plant the seeds, the new thoughts, but our part is also to be the vibration or the conditions, the atmosphere and consciousness in which the seed thought can come into full manifestation and blossom in our lives as our experiences, as demonstrations of things in the manifest world. So we call this alignment, aligning with the vision or the idea. And we do that by creating a field of peace. So therefore, that's why I chose that opening joke about relax. You're too tense, right? Relax. So it's about relaxing, learning to relax and be that presence in which the seeds of our desires are made manifest. So how do we cultivate this peace? Well, we know spiritual practice, of course. However, I'm going to be talking about two specific things today. Being true to the truth of who you are and staying open at the top. Being open and available to continued growth and expansion and unfoldment. So being true to the truth of who you are. A great way to cultivate inner peace, because when we truly get who we are as emanations, as expressions of the Most High, we understand that there is an amazing amount of power, creative power that we wield every single day. And so it is important to be conscious of what's going through our minds so that we're planting the kinds of seeds that we want to experience and manifest. So again, constantly, continually using universal law. And it's really helpful for me to think of myself as an inlet and an outlet of infinite spirit, the creative spirit. So that means all of infinite spirit is continually flowing through us. All the peace, all the joy, all the love, all the creative possibility and potentiality of the infinite universal presence flowing through us constantly, continuously. And so we get to continue to look at what are the beliefs that aren't serving me, what's not going well, and we can tell by what's out picturing. We can then go within and we can refashion that inner world of our subconscious mind, or what Ernest Holmes called the subjective mind. So this is so beautifully illustrated, this concept of being true to the truth of who you are, in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 5. And if you remember, in this, the disciples were having no success at all in catching fish. So Jesus walked onto the boat, and he told them to go out into the depths and drop their nets into the deep. Let down their nets. So launch out into the deep and let down the nets. The result, anybody know the result? What? Filled to overflowing. Yes, the nets were filled to overflowing. And these beautiful teaching stories teach us about our own consciousness, about how it is that we function. When we launch out into the depths, into the silence of our own being, listening deeply for guidance, so we're dropping down our nets, we're launching the deep, we're dropping down our nets, we're being available and open to the inner guidance, new ideas, solutions. What happens is we are filled to overflowing with possibilities and potentialities. So the spiritual practices that we have of meditation, contemplation, visioning, and our beautiful form of prayer that's an affirmative prayer that affirms what God is and who we are, reminds us of this truth of our being, this truth of our being. And so therefore we can act more fully, not only to meet our own needs, but we have a bigger idea. Meeting our own needs is great and it's really important. But we gather as community because we also have a deeper intention for each other as community and for our world. And so these principles can be brought into a broader scale too with something that's called sacred activism. Sacred activism. Now, this is really different from regular activism. Often activism is fueled by outrage. Sacred activism, though, is a combining of deep spiritual practice, deep spiritual wisdom, combined with focused action, wherever it is that we're called to fulfill our activities. So again, it's grounded in spiritual practice, and therefore it comes from love. It comes from stillness. It comes from connection with the divine. So sacred activists are for things instead of against things. There's a difference. So rather than being against war, we are for peace. So the beautiful thing about that is by the focus on what we're for, we're planting those seeds into universal mind instead of fighting against something that we don't want. Very important because of the way the creative law works. And here's the thing about sacred activism. It requires patience because it is a long-term approach. It's an approach of transforming consciousness in order to be the new expression of humanity, which is the universal human, that comes from love, that operates in a way that understands that we're using the creative process all the time, and that we can be more effective in the world by being that next version, that higher version of ourselves. That's why we gather here, is to grow in consciousness, to be that greater version of ourselves, to be that beneficial presence in the world. So being true to the truth of who you are then is an embodiment of love and light, an embodiment of the divine nature of who we are. And so as we raise our vibration in that field of consciousness, we are the fertile soil in which new ideas, new possibilities, new visions of a heaven on earth, a world that works for all, are made manifest. Next one, staying open at the top. So how many of you are familiar with the Sagrada Familia temple in Barcelona, Spain? Yeah, it's pretty awesome. By Gaudí is the name of the artist. And it's really unusual in that it is completely privately funded. It's not funded by the church. It's funded by private individuals. And Gaudí wanted to keep it that way because he wanted it to be something that was always open at the top, that was always ever unfolding. So when an architect, all the architects that have participated in this all along the way, when they retire and pass it on to the next architect, they encourage that new architect to take it to another level, to do something new and creative, to use new technology and new materials and new ideas. So it's an ever-evolving temple. Isn't that what we are? We are ever-evolving temples of the Most High. Our consciousness is designed to grow, expand, and unfold. And we can participate in that through our spiritual practice, through our prayers, through our deep inner work, through visioning. So I love the idea of being centers of divine operation. That's an idea I got from Thomas Troward, who was someone who inspired Ernest Holmes quite some time ago. We're centers of divine operation, and we are designed to create something that has not been created before, something beyond what has gone before, and even something that is more wonderful and supportive of life on this planet, of our own life and the life on this planet. Staying open at the top to new ideas, new ways of seeing, new ways of being. So our visioning core does this. This is one of the things that I love. Another thing I love about our spiritual teaching is that we have a visioning core in our community that meets every month and listens deeply, asks questions like, what is God's highest idea of our spiritual community? What does it look like, feel like, sound like? We listen with reverence. We allow the new ideas to unfold. And so what is it we're doing? We are launching into the depth of the silence, and we are casting down our nets to catch ideas of the Most High. We are being open at the top and bringing into expression that next version of ourselves as individuals, the next version of ourselves as spiritual community. Being true to the truth of who we are, staying open at the top to newness, launching into the depth of inner silence and letting down the nets of our awareness to catch those ideas in the mind of God. I'd like to complete with the awareness of this idea of blossoming in the swaying of the winds of time. We've addressed this by shifting our perspective into the awareness of who we are, whose we are, and how we are constantly creating, getting into that awareness of the inner peace that's within us. So I'd like to read this beautiful quote by Christian Larson, which I think sums it up so beautifully. In all your efforts to grow into greater and more beautiful beings, consider the lilies of the field. Grow like the flowers and you will never fail. The flower resists nothing, antagonizes nothing, works against nothing. It gently comes out of its gross and earthly environment and grows on peacefully, silently, and serenely until it becomes an inspiration to all the world. Human life, we are the same as the lilies of the field. We can learn so much from nature. So let's turn within in prayer. I celebrate this beautiful opportunity to sink deeply into the very heart of my being, realizing that I'm tapping into the source of all that is, which is the presence of God within me. I know that that same presence is within everyone present here and truly throughout all humanity and all beings everywhere. I'm reminded that this presence is infinite love, infinite peace, and that we are being called to be true to this truth of who we are in each and every moment and each and every day. I know that as we continue to launch into the depths of the ocean of consciousness and to cast our nets deep, that we catch spiritual nourishment, the ideas in the mind of God, new ways of being, new ways of seeing, new ways of doing that support the unfoldment of our own nature and that supports the upliftment of all human consciousness, that results in sacred activism, whatever ours looks like, whether it's raising our voices, making a financial contribution, going into the silence, praying, all of those versions of sacred activism. So I'm so grateful to know that we are here for God. We are here for this higher idea of who we are, this truth of who we are. And I know that it bears beautiful fruit, that we continue to blossom no matter what the winds of change may bring, because of who we are. And so I give my thanks for this beautiful awareness, the manifestation of this word, this alignment, this beautiful atmosphere